Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was Andrew Stevens, Sergeant Andrew Stevens, bugler with the 144th Army Band. Welcome to the 2012 Memorial Day ceremony in Arlington Heights. Thank you all very much for coming, for giving our veterans and our active duty military a wonderful Arlington Heights welcome in the parade. Today we're going to start out our ceremony with an invocation from the chaplain of the American Legion 9th District, Ed Landau. Chaplain Landau.
You have to get close to the mic.
Uncover, please.
Got to get closer.
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, on this day we pause to pay tribute to our honored and valiant departed comrades. Grant that we may be ever mindful of their service to God and country, and of our comradeship with them in the ranks of the United States military. Our Heavenly Father, give courage and comfort to those who have suffered the loss of a loved one. Watch over the graves of our beloved comrades. May their souls and the souls of all faithful departed rest in eternal peace. Protect and defend those who serve today. Grant that they serve with honor and dignity to your glory and to our great nation. May we appreciate and treasure the gift and heritage of freedom assured by all by the sacrifice of many, and remember the great price at which it was achieved. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Landau. Now we will have, is Tammy on? We will have the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem, sung by Miss Tammy McCann. Please stand, remove your cover, place your hand over heart, and face the flag, which is at the north end of the park here.
You got to get close.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy. That was very beautiful. Please be seated. Today for our ceremony, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Greg Padabani. I serve as chairman of the Veterans Memorial Committee here in Arlington Heights. We've been working real hard on this park as well as the parade and the ceremony you're attending here today. We've got something very special for you, though. For the first time ever in the history of our 125-year history of our town, we've got a choir that has been gathered together from all the churches and the singing organizations of our towns. We call them the First Memorial Day Choir. They're led by Henry Kogler. And they're first going to introduce themselves to us by singing the 5 military service songs. So if you're a member of any of those military services, please feel free to stand up and take the salute from those songs.
Fight for the right and to
Very nice. Thank you to the choir for that. Henry Kogler conducting. When they were rehearsing last night at the Metropolis Theater, Henry asked them to sing the Army song, and when it came to counting cadence, he said, "Let your inner drill sergeant come out." And it sure did. That got me thinking about the old days. Thank you very much. Today we have a number of welcomes that we always do as part of our ceremony here. So many very important and very special people join us at the ceremony, but we always like to start out with the families of our fallen heroes. And in Arlington Heights, we have a rare group of young men who went off to serve our nation and died in the defense of freedom. We call them Arlington's fallen heroes. And their line goes all the way back to the Civil War with two of them, all the way through all the conflicts up through and including our current Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Those 58 young men from Arlington Heights gave us their last greatest effort in the defense of our freedoms so we could be here today. And their families of five of those are represented here today that we wanted to have very special recognition for. First is the family of Richard J. Adam, a United States Army Air Corpsman who was killed in action November 1943. Then there's the family of William Carl Dabbert, PFC U.S. Army, killed in the Republic of Vietnam in June of 1969. The family of Robert Few Conti, United States Marine Corps, killed in action in Republic of Vietnam in December of 2006. And finally, the family of James Bray Stack, United States Marine Corps, killed in action November 2010. We should all give them a very big round of applause and thank them for their service to the country. Oh, wow. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen, I skipped over in my reading here. There is one additional family of the fallen hero, and that's William Robert Newgard, PFC United States Army, Republic of Vietnam in 2006. Now, Arlington Heights is known as a town that does support its veterans and does keep its veterans and all those who served and sacrificed very deep in its heart. And every year at this Memorial Day ceremony, on behalf of the entire community of Arlington Heights, we make a very solemn promise to the families of our fallen heroes, all those that are here today and all those that couldn't be with us here today. So to the families of those fallen heroes, we make this promise on behalf of all of Arlington Heights that their fallen heroes from their families will always, always be honored and remembered here in our town, and never will they ever be forgotten. That is our solemn pledge to the families. Now, here in Arlington Heights, we've done a number of things already to keep those names of those 58 young men in front of everybody. The first is that we've built this park that's you're in right now with a center circle, and at the very center is the Eternal Flame sculpture, the 15-foot high flame made of bronze that's lit at night, so that there's a statement of Arlington Heights' eternal honor and remembrance both day and night. Now, surrounding that flame are the commemorative bricks for any veteran from anywhere, from any time. And there are 5 sections of bricks that are available to anyone. But there's one section that is reserved for our fallen heroes, and the 58 bricks for each one of our 58 fallen heroes are in that very first section as you enter into the center circle. It's that section we reserve for any young man or woman killed in action in the defense of our country. The second thing we're doing today, and we do invite you all to go and take a look at the fallen hero wreaths that decorate the center circle of our park. There is a wreath for every one of our fallen heroes that's been sponsored by someone in this community so that their names will never be forgotten. They're very beautiful. They decorate the entire circle here. When you have a chance, not only should you read and look at the wreaths, but during the year, please come and look at the bricks that are in this park. There are over 500 veterans who are commemorated here, and over 75 of those are killed in action. Every one of those bricks contains a story of very profound service and sacrifice. They tell us about what the cost of freedom is, and it's here in this park, available 24 hours a day. So if you have the time and you'd like a very profound experience where you remember these young men and women that served for us, come to the park, read those bricks. Now, we have a number of very special groups that we want to acknowledge here today. First is the United States Navy. Great Lakes Naval Station has sent down to participate in the parade in this ceremony their recruit honor guard. We have Marines from the 2nd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment stationed here in Chicago. We have soldiers from the 85th Support Command of the United States Army. We have the 85th Army Band. We have for the first time ever, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 311, who joined us in our parade, and I'm told over 60 Vietnam veterans joined us today from all over. Now, in addition to this, we also have something very special from the heart of our town. Arlington High School, just a few blocks from here, closed in the 1980s, but their classes still live on. And I was contacted by a representative of the Arlington High School class of 1964. That was a class where two of our fallen heroes grew up and went to high school, and that is Lieutenant Conti, Robert Conti, and young PFC William Dabbert. William Dabbert, Bill Dabbert, and Bob Conti were both members of that class. In fact, Bob Conti was the president of the class of 1964. They both served in Vietnam, and they both fell in the cause of freedom. Finally, of course, we've introduced them already, our Memorial Day Choir. But we'd like to especially thank all the veterans who are present today, because you are the ones that we have to thank for our freedoms. And there's three symbols that I can think of that represent our nation: the United States flag, the eagle, and the Constitution of the United States. And all three of those symbols of our great nation are given great and deep meaning because the service and sacrifice of all veterans everywhere. Thank you to our veterans. Finally, we need to thank the people of Arlington Heights. Everyone in our town has done something to participate in this parade. Our government, Arlington Heights Village Government, our Park District, and so many other organizations, businesses, and individuals have come together to make this day possible. It was all done on a voluntary basis, and we have to thank the people of Arlington Heights for this wonderful day we have here today. Now, there is one other special thing we want to share with you today, and that is the flag that's flying here in our park at half-mast has a very significant meaning to our community. It's an American flag that was flown over a fire base in Afghanistan, Camp Arena in Herat, Afghanistan, by one of the young men who grew up in this town, went to the United States Military Academy, was commissioned, and is currently serving in harm's way in Afghanistan. That's young Captain Court Harris. He flew this flag over his fire base on January 18th, 2012, which was the 125th anniversary of the incorporation of Arlington Heights, Illinois. And Captain Harris's father and mother, David Harris and Michelle Harris, presented this flag to the town council at a special meeting in honor of the 125th anniversary of our town. Thank you, General Harris and Michelle Harris. And thank you to all those serving overseas. There are many, many people who we need to recognize today, but if you have one of your ceremony programs, you can get a ceremony program at any of the water tables here. There's quite a list of people and dignitaries that have been with us. I'd like to quickly just introduce that Major General David Harris, retired, is with us today. The Commanding General of the 85th Support Command, Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn, is with us here today. From the 2nd Marine Battalion of the 24th Marine Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel David Owen, and Major Guillermo Rosales, Executive Officer of 224 Marines. We have our veterans organizations represented here. Chairman, Commander of the VFW 981, Chuck Shields. Commander of the American Legion Post 208, Ellen Janda. The Commandant of the Northwest Suburban Marine Corps League, Al Colleget. And the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 208, Lois Karowski, are with us here today. And then our elected officials, we have very honored joining us today, our Congresswoman from the 9th Congressional District of Illinois, Jan Schakowsky. And David Harris is serving double duty today. He is serving us as the Illinois representative of the 66th District, David Harris. From the village of Arlington Heights, we have our esteemed Mayor, Arlene Mulder. And many of our trustees are here. Norm Breyer, Tom Glasgow, Tom Hayes, Bert Rosenberg, John Scaletta, and Mike Cedar. I hope I caught all of you. From the Arlington Heights Park Board, we have Commissioners Miles Naughton, Rob Nesfasil, and Rob Smith. From the Arlington Heights Park Foundation, Mike Gordon, President. From Wheeling Township, Mike Schrader, Supervisor. From the Arlington Heights Memorial Library, Debbie Nelson and Debbie Smart, Trustees. From the Lions Club of Arlington Heights, Greg Andajeski, President. From the Kiwanis Club of Arlington Heights, Marty Shayer, I think he's here, President. From the Republicans of Wheeling Township, Ruth O'Connell, Committeewoman. And from the Wheeling Township Democrats, Mark Walker, Vice President.
Matt Murphy, Senator.
And I'm sorry, Matt Murphy, Senator Matt Murphy, Illinois Senator for Arlington Heights. We're going to start out our speeches today with a very brief introduction from Chuck Shields, Commander of VFW Post 981. Commander Shields.
Okay, welcome. 60 years ago today, Okay, I'm sorry. 60 years ago today, the VFW 981 sponsored its first Memorial Day parade. We meet again today, honoring the fallen and those who have answered their country's call. The years have shown that we must remain vigilant and strong. There are those who prey on the unwary. We now know freedom is not free. Someone must pay to vanquish the enemies of freedom. The Americans we honor today paid that price. Thank you for coming, and God bless America.
Thank you, Commander Shields. Our next speaker is our esteemed Arlene Mulder, Mayor of Arlington Heights, Illinois.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome to everyone. Those of you who are here for the first time and some of you who have been here every time. This is always a special day. We've been here whether it's weather or not weather, and I've been given strict instructions to be short. I do want to say thanks to everyone, and I'm not going to try to list them, that have made this day possible, but particularly all of our Vietnam vets who have waited way too long to be thanked for their service. So let's give them another thanks. Lives lost are always tough. And we tend to look at each day and think we have challenges. What we should, and every time we see that flag, we should remember why we have freedom in the United States and who gave it to us. It's the soldier. It has always been the soldier. It is the soldier, not the President of the United States, to give us democracy. It is the soldier, not Congress, no offense, who takes care of us. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag. And all of these allow the protester to burn that flag. Let us always remember, every day, we need to thank those who've gone, given the ultimate sacrifice, and those who've come back to be part of us. We need to honor them and thank them. Thank you, and thank Greg.
Thank you, Mayor Mulder. That was very moving. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Colonel David S. Owen. He is the Inspector Instructor of the 2nd Battalion of the 24th Marines. Now, we've invited the 2nd of the 24th here because I'll tell you a little story. When we were installing the Eternal Flame sculpture here last November, one of the young men working for the Arlington Heights Park District came up to me and said he was a Marine, and he had served with the 224 Marines in Iraq, and he was wondering if our town would allow bricks for the 16 young Marines that were killed from 224 in their service in Iraq. And it took me about a half a nanoseconds to say yes, because our town, we would all say yes to that. And so we worked hard to raise the money for the 16 bricks that are in there now, commemorating every one of those 16 young Marines who gave his life for our freedoms. And it's only fitting that the representatives from that 2nd of the 24th Marines come today to tell us their story and to talk about those young Marines. Lieutenant Colonel David S. Owen.
Thank you, Greg. First of all, I'd like to say to everybody out here how humbled I am to be able to speak today. Not only do we remember those who have passed before us and the history with them, but sitting here amongst us with all the veterans from all the fantastic generations from World War II to our Vietnam era veterans who are so proudly represented. Again, I am humbled to be amongst you and also be a part of this country's history as a combat veteran. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, citizens of Arlington Heights, the greater Chicagoland area, and visitors from around the state and nation who may be present to celebrate Memorial Day with their loved ones here. I would distinctively like to thank Greg for inviting me here to speak here today, as well as working so closely with us in the 2nd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment on the proper inscriptions from the bricks from our fallen Marines. Thank you very much, Greg. On behalf of my unit, the 2nd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment, it's truly an honor to speak to you today. Our infantry battalion traces its roots back to Chicago and the surrounding area all the way to around 1926. Subsequently mobilizing for World War II, the 2nd Battalion of the 24th Marine Regiment conducted landings at places such as Tinian, Kwajalein, Saipan, and Iwo Jima. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph J. McCarthy, a Chicago fireman, was among the ranks of members of the 4th Marine Division that earned the Medal of Honor, and it is the namesake of our headquarters building. Post-World War II, Chicago area Marines mobilized once again for Korea in 1950. Then later, the 2nd Battalion of the 24th Marine Regiment has participated in Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm in Kuwait, and 2 deployments to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Today, we fondly refer to ourselves as Mayhem from the Heartland, with units not only located in Chicago, but also at Fort Sheridan, Illinois, Milwaukee and Madison, Wisconsin, and Des Moines, Iowa, truly representatives of the Midwest. We have more than 900 Marines and sailors, most of which are citizen Marines and sailors in our reserve component, that remain ready to support the nation whenever the call to arms is given. We're here today to celebrate Memorial Day, a time that we honor and sacrifice our fallen brothers and sisters that paid the ultimate sacrifice for the security of our nation. This day traces its origin back to the Civil War, formerly known as Decoration Day. It commemorated fallen Union soldiers of the Civil War, and similar celebrations occurred in the South until the holiday was formalized nationally in the 20th century. Most fittingly, the driving force behind what we now know as Memorial Day was Major General John A. Logan, an accomplished Union general who hailed from what is now known as Murfreesboro, Illinois, in the Jackson County area. General Logan was a strong advocate of Veterans Affairs and an Illinois statesman, serving in both the U.S. House and the Congress. And it's my honor today, although a Hoosier native, to be here amongst the people of the land of Lincoln who've done so much for this country. We are gathered here today to remember and to honor sacrifice. We're here to remember that freedom isn't free. We're here to remember that although we continue to enjoy peace and prosperity, there will always be those who will try to do us harm. We're here to remember the men and women of this country who have stepped forward and said, "Send me to fight the country's wars or come to the humanitarian aid of countless countries around the globe." We are here to honor sacrifice, the sacrifice of putting nation before self, the sacrifice of life in defense of the nation's security, and the sacrifice of countless mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, friends, and families who supported their loved ones as they departed into harm's way. Today we keep the spirits of the deceased amongst the living such that they will not be forgotten for their selflessness. Today we resolve to remember and to tell the story to our children and grandchildren such that they will keep the memory of our heroes alive, from the first shots fired at Lexington and Concord during our revolution to the rugged terrain of Afghanistan today to the inevitable future conflicts. I ask you, remember. For me personally, I remember the faces and the names and the honor and the sacrifice of the 16 members of our battalion who paid the ultimate sacrifice and made a difference. Men who were nicknamed the Mad Ghosts of Mahmadiyah by their enemy, a tribute to their vigilance in accomplishing the mission and making a difference as United States Marines and United States citizens in combat. And although we don't like to measure combat through statistics, I'd like to share with you a few things that the 1,200 plus Marines from 224 did while they were in Iraq, fighting in an area known as the Triangle of Death. They detained almost equal their number of suspected insurgents and sent approximately half of that number to Abu Ghraib for permanent detention and prosecution for their insurrection. In addition, they found more than 130 plus caches of enormous proportion, tractor trailers full of explosives that helped to bring down the number of IEDs that were occurring on major supply routes, as well as vehicle-borne IEDs in Baghdad, all in support of the country's effort to pacify the area. And then finally, as true Americans, they brought democracy to the Triangle of Death, an area that had been so violent, with 5 to 9 IEDs going off daily, small arms fights, rockets, indirect fire. They were able to pacify the area and allow Iraqis to vote in the true tradition of democracy. So as we part here today, As we part here today, I'd ask you to carry the message that we need to continue to tell the story, our most recent story. Go tell your fellow Americans that 3,000 perished on 9/11, and we've since deployed more than 1 million American men and women to support our national security. Tell Americans that we still have millions more ready to support the nation abroad, as well as those who serve and protect in law enforcement and emergency services here at home. Go tell your fellow Americans that we're grateful for the sacrifice of their sons, their daughters, their husbands and wives in support of this great country. And go tell Americans that as we shape the future of our country, that our veterans will continue returning home, entering into these communities such as Arlington Heights, helping the economy to prosper and making the country strong, continuing to serve. As veterans and fellow citizens of this country, let's continue to support one another as we supported our nation over these many years. Tell our story, tell it proudly. Thank you for having me here today, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Colonel Owen. That was inspiring. Next, we'll have some comments from Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn, the commander of the 84th Support Command stationed here in Arlington Heights. General Dunn.
Thank you. To the Honorable Mayor Mulder, thank you for inviting myself and also the members of the 85th Support Command to this wonderful celebration. To you, the citizens of the village of Arlington Heights, I want to say thank you, because when I look out, I see all the volunteers. I see all those citizens, the veterans back there standing tall. I see the flags of our various services sitting over here. I see the youth who marched in the band. I see the youth who were part of Boy Scouts. I see the youth who were the cadets marching up and down. And I see this voice from heaven sitting over here, all of them within their 30s. All of them within their 30s. But here's the thing about it. You are what makes America great. Not the large cities. They have their responsibilities too. But it's the small cities. This is where you really find the true red, white, and blue that represents Old Glory. And you should give yourself a round of applause for being such outstanding citizens. They say that a soldier is someone's son or daughter, or next door neighbor, a fellow church member, a fellow co-worker, somebody that you once knew. It might be your grandson or granddaughter, but it's something extraordinary when he or she raises their right hand and take the oath of office, whether they join the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and even the Coast Guard, that they say they swear to defend the Constitution of the United States. That is totally awesome. And when you think about our Army, as our Chief of Staff of the Army says, the strength of our nation is the 1.1 million soldiers serving in the United States Army. The strength of the soldiers are the families who support those soldiers. But when you look at the reserve and the guard component, the strength of those soldiers and those families are you, the community. You are the one who keep our soldiers strong. And when I say our soldiers, I mean all other service members that represent the other services. That is something to be proud of. And as Colonel Owen was talking about the history of the 2nd of the 24th, the 85th Infantry Division has a proud history as well, going back past to World War I. And in World War II, there were 4 custom men out of the 85th Infantry Division that were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And in our Reserve Center, we have those placards of those soldiers to remind the other soldiers who are taking up the cause and carried on, this is your legacy. As soldiers, we have traveled all over the world. And as these veterans here, those who have served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam can attest, they have carried the red, white, and blue, known to most as Old Glory. And where they carry Old Glory, freedom has reigned. Freedom has reigned in other countries because of the red, white, and blue. The economy has flourished in other countries because of the red, white, and blue. And one thing about Old Glory, the red, white, and blue has never ran from anything. You know this, we know this, and the world knows that. And so to you veterans, you were once young and soldiers back then. You have seen the horrors of war. You have served your country faithfully. We, the ones who are wearing the uniform now, we salute each and every one of you. Those of you who served in Korea and Vietnam, I see the Rangers, I see the CIBs, I see the 1st Cav, I see the Marines, I see everything that you represent about what's right with America. And I want you to know that we who wear the uniform owe you a debt of gratitude for what you have done. And as a new generation comes along, that new generation you saw marching, they too will get it right, and they will continue to march along. Arlington Heights, you have a lot to be proud of. And remember, United States of America, and people come to America. People don't leave America, people want to come to America. We are the land of the free because of you, the home of the brave. Thank you, Arlington Heights.
Thank you very much, General Dunn. Our final speaker today is someone that we all know and we respect highly. That's Major General David Harris. He's retired. He was the Adjutant General of the Illinois National Guard and has a very distinguished military career that you can read about in our program today. Major General Harris.
Greg, thank you very much. It is indeed a great honor to be here, and Congresswoman Schakowsky, Mayor Mulder, village trustees, Senator Murphy, all the elected officials, General Dunn, Colonel Owen, Commander Shields, Commander Janda, but especially to the families of the fallen heroes that we recognize here today. It really is a true honor and a distinction to be here. Before I start, and I was told also to keep it short, so I will keep it short, but before I start, I do want to pay special recognition to Greg Padovani and Mark Walker and the other individuals who participated in the drive to revive Memorial Park. They have done an absolutely fabulous job with reviving Memorial Park. And we come out here every year, and it's not just every year, but it's a great place to come other than Memorial Day because it really takes us back and stirs a lot of memories. My wife and I are quite honored that the flag that flies here today is one that was given to the village of Arlington Heights by our son, who is serving in Afghanistan. We are quite proud of him. He follows in a in a tradition which I am very proud of. Now I have to tell you, as I was doing some research for this speech, these brief remarks, I came across the following quote on a Memorial Day article, and I thought I'd read it to you. And it goes back a couple of years, but it said this, and this is a quote: "Traditional observance of Memorial Day has diminished over the years. Many Americans nowadays have forgotten the meaning and traditions of Memorial Day," unquote. Now the article that I quoted from was written before 9/11, and you know, as I look out to the crowd here today, I know that that quote does not apply to Arlington Heights. And I know, and I'm quite confident in saying that I don't believe that it applies to the rest of America as well. Americans across our land have been shown again the dedicated service that our military gives to this country. And I have to be, I'll digress for a second to talk about the quote that, or the poem that Mayor Mulder quoted from, that talked about the soldiers. And we always talk about soldiers, but we never want to forget the Marines, the seamen, the airmen, and the Coast Guard men that also gave so much service to this great country. You know, more than 6,000 service members have lost their lives in Operation Iraqi freedom, and enduring freedom. And those 6,000 service members unfortunately join over 600,000 from the Civil War, over 116,000 from World War I, over 405,000 from World War II, 36,000 from Korea, 58,000 from Vietnam, and tens of thousands in other wars that we have been involved in over the years. For more than 230 years, our military has provided a rampart and a bastion against the enemies of this country. In that time, the world has changed dramatically, and our military has changed with it. But the valor, the dignity, the courage, and the willingness to sacrifice by the men and women who so proudly wear the uniform remains the same. From Valley Forge to Saigon, from San Juan Hill to Baghdad and Kandahar, the fighting spirit of the American service member permeates the history of this nation. You know, the founders of this nation understood that the military would be that defense from which America would always guard its freedom. George Washington stated that by keeping up in peace a well-regulated and disciplined militia, we shall take the fairest and best method to preserve for a long time to come the happiness, dignity, and independence of this country. Those words were prophetic and have been fulfilled time and time again. For at the heart of America is freedom. Freedom for ourselves and for all nations willing to fight for it. And while the price of freedom is high, it is a wealth that no debt can encumber. Today we remember the past because to forget the past would be an expensive lesson. The service members who gave their lives did so for us. And who are the heroes whose life blood has bought the liberty of our nation? Each and every one of them is different, but they share a sameness. While they may be white, they may be black, man, woman, Hispanic, Asian, Catholic, Protestant, regardless of race, color, or creed, they are Americans. They willingly took up arms to defend a land they cherish and to expend blood and treasure so that others can live in peace and freedom. We pray that no more heroes will ever have to die for us. But the nature of the world tells us that such a prayer is unrealistic. I read on the internet today before I was coming over here that 3 service members, 3 NATO members, were killed in Afghanistan today. Their countries of origins have not been determined. But it shows that many are still giving their lifeblood in defense of what they believe in. The United States is the most powerful nation on earth, and there are many who would do us harm. Thus, our service members will be called on in the future, just as they are now, and some of them will pay the very dear price that has been paid by those who we remember today. Let us never, never forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Never let your children or their children forget. If we cease to remember, as Colonel Owen said, if we cease to remember, we dishonor all of those who came before, and we doom all who would come after us. I'll close by paraphrasing Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, where he said, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here today, but we must never forget what the fallen heroes that we honor here today did. It is up to us, the living, to be dedicated to the principles for which they gave their last full measure of devotion." I thank each and every one of you for coming today. May God bless all of you and your families. May God bless all of those who have served and who continue to serve. And may God bless and continue to bless the greatest nation the world has ever known. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Harris. That was very, very moving. Our next section, well, before I begin our next session, we've been saying a lot of thank yous to a lot of people, but, you know, unfortunately, one young man back here we didn't say thank you to, and that's the gentleman who has done so much to organize our Memorial Day Parade for about the last, what, 30 years? 20 years? Wally, yeah. And his name is Wally Lutzfager. He's a member of the VFW Post 981, and he's as hard-working a guy as you'd ever come across. Let's give a nice round of applause for Wally. These are the names of the honored veterans who passed away this year. We keep them in our memories. We thank their families for the service they did for our country. And we will keep them in our hearts always.
Joseph E. Anderlich, William F. Anderson, Richard George Arling, Irving G. Asmus, Jackie Atkins, Thomas Banner, Robert M. Barata, Lynn L. Bowman, Norman Bobine, Carl George Becker, George Bednars, Howard J. Bernhardt, Leo Bertonlani Jr., Frances Charlotte Bevins, John H. Beale, Paul R. Blother, Harold Bloss, Robert Joseph Botke, Peter B. Boder, John Boycott, William E. Bolash, Daniel Bolda, Daniel C. Borsett, Iris Pearl Boston, James L. Bowen, Billy Brown, Henry G. Bull, Jr., John Stanley Burns, Paul H. Burston, Frank C. Cadell, Kenneth Carlson, Raymond L. Carroll, Louis F. Castrova, Guy D. Severelli, George S. Colangelo, William J. Cole, John Q. Collins, Bertha Como, Henry L. Como, William E. Cook, Edwin F. Corey Jr., Marie A. Corso, Donald Watson Daniels, Milford Derry, Virginia Davenport, William B. Davis, Frederick L. Davis, Garwin L. Dawley, Gerard Benzer, Omar Dockstader, John A. Dacus, Donald G. Dolson, Robert Power Dove, James Driscoll, Anthony J. Drukas, Charles L. Dewey, Mather George Edwards, Ronald E. Eggert, Robert H. Eck, George I., Arthur Raymond Urbach, Herbert Esserman, Paul Leonard Fackler, Neil F. Farrell, Robert Ford, Frank L. Foster, George K. Gabrielson, Jr., Edward Leonard Gerke, Anthony Ross Giatano, Robert Dale Golder, Bruce C. Graham, Seymour Green, Catherine A. Gutzloff, Elmer R. Gustafson, Walter Robert Hayden, James J. Holla, Donald Hammerstrom, Frederick A. Hansen, Raymond John Harms, Michael McCall Henry, Edward William Hurst, John R. Herman Jr. Sr., John H. Hedred, Robert T. Hitzel, George Joseph Holbrook, Charles Holler, James Holmes, Thomas E. Irwin, Roger James, Thaddeus S. Janowiak, Frank S. Jarecki Jr., Gosta Johnson, Elmer J. Johnson, Harry F. Jones, David E. Jorgensen, Robert L. Kazmarek, Jerome Carthier, James L. Kaufman, Leonard Keating, Paul L. Keck, Donald L. Kepler, Eugene Kerr, Carl C. Kewart, Leo M. Kinderneck, William J. Carr, Joseph R. Klein, Arthur Clevin, George J. Kamen Jr., Kenneth Kentop, Andrew Kohler, Robert E. Lee Kuntz Sr., John Kosarek, James F. Kozink, Joseph Roman Kozicki K., Edward Katowski, Peter V. Kovanovich, James A. Kuhn, Vincent E. Kyrick, Thomas J. Lally, Robert LaMancha, Irvin Dale Lanier, Norman Lipinski, Dean Larson, Theodore L. Larson, Louis W. Larson, Robert Lesage, Edward J. Levin, Stanley Lewandowski, Helen Lieb, Richard J. Lewer, Francisco Limatoni, Patrick Lindgren, Carl Gordon Lord, Frederick Lawrence, Eugene F. Lowry, John Lucas, Andrew Ludolph, Fred W. Lunsman, Leo John Lynn II, Joseph Clyde Mavis, Richard E. Mahan, Carl G. Maiden, Larry Malicki, Mary J. Mangan, Thomas F. Marcel, Stanley Marzicki, Jermaine Mulrace, Harry T. McCullum, Jerome Vincent McElvey Sr., Patrick McGowan, Fred W. Meyer, Ralph E. Meyer, Nathan A. Mirza, Dr. Bernard Moore, Terrence M. Moran, James W. Moy, Thomas J. Muldoon, Jerry W. Nallen, Anthony Louis Naples, Howard Edward Nebel, Waldo M. Nelson, Michael I. Newcomb, Lawrence F. Fix, Lyle J. Novak, James Francis O'Connor, Thomas O'Donoghue, James T. O'Malley, Fred Overhoff, Caesar A. Passananti, Dr. Carmen R. Painter, Michael Pecorelli, Herbert Warren Peterson, June Pettinger, William B. Pitzer, Eugene Porton Jr., David M. Porter, William J. Preble, Raymond Pruka, Adolph C. Michael Pucci Jr., Henry R. Perman, Thomas Quinn, William Race, Robert M. Radish, Ronald F. Racia, George Leonard Raup, Clifford Richard Raymond, Leroy Redeker, John K. Reeder, Richard Resner, Richard J. Revor, Richard A. Rinskorf, Joseph Risman, William Roeder, Donald J. Romer, Eugene Anthony Rogers, Ronald A. Romano, Raymond Ruxtalis, Frank S. Santelli Jr., Richard J. Santori, Edward Savage, Frederick Schaffner, Nicholas P. Scheele, Robert Schlitt, Rudolph R. Schmidt, Robert Smith, John E. Shanebeck Sr., Leon Schroeder, Paul J. Schroeder, Robert Frederick Schroeder Jr., John August Schultz, Robert Schwinn, Alan Taylor Smith, Ross Lamar Smith Sr., Robert J. Smythe, Ronald R. Soderberg, Edward Soika, Robert S. Stang, Henry Stamek, Wayne King Stein, Stephen Steinauer, Richard A. Stocking, Hubert F. Stroke, Omar Stewart, William J. Stahl, Robert N. Sum Sr., Malcolm M. Swift, Claude E. Tackett, William H. Taft, Segabak Takihari, John B. Tarpey, Carl Milton Teutsch Jr., Frederick Anton Tyson, Earl Toomey, Charles Travis, Dr. Richard Clifford Traynor, Donald G. Tyler, Robert Irvine, Michael Vincenzo, Donovan C. Walkland, Arthur Francis Wall, Lucy Cornelius Wall Jr., Arthur Wallen, Helen Louise Warner, John Joseph Waters, Edward J. Watron, Robert L. Wendoff, Gary R. Welch, Martin Wendell, Edward J. Wilsack, Randall Wilkin, William T. Will, Reverend Thomas Wise, CSD, David G. Wilthoff, Chester Wolin, Alan Wolke, Walter S. Wadakin, John M. Wolfers, James Peter Zale, Norman W. Zeck, Richard S. Zidek, Robert D. Zimick.
Thank you very much, Commander Janda. These are the names of the honored veterans who passed away this year. We keep them in our memories. We thank their families for the service they did for our country, and we will keep them in our hearts always. Our next reading is next. We will read the names of the 16 fallen heroes from the 2nd Battalion of the 24th Marines. The names will be read by the Executive Officer of 224 Marines, Major Guillermo Rosales. Major Rosales.
Following Marines gave their lives in defense of our freedom. Sergeant Matthew S. Adam, 25 July 2004. Lance Corporal Daniel R. Wyatt, 12 October 2004. Corporal Nathaniel T. Hammond, 8 November 2004. Lance Corporal Brandon P. Ramey, 8 November 2004. Lance Corporal Shane K. O'Donnell, 8 November 2004. Corporal Robert P. Warrens II, 8 November 2004. Corporal Peter J. Giannopoulos, 11 November 2004. Corporal Brian P. Prenning, 12 November 2004. PFC Ryan J. Cantafio, 25 November 2004. PFC Brent T. Vroman, 13 December 2004. Lance Corporal Richard Warner, 13 December 2004. Lance Corporal Andrew Nowacki, 26 February 2005. Lance Corporal Travis M. Witchclass, 5 February 2005. Staff Sergeant Chad J. Simon, 4 August 2005. Lance Corporal Dean D. Opichka, 14 April 2008. Corporal Richard J. Nelson, 14 April 2008.
Thank you, Major. The final list that we'll read today will be the 58 young men from Arlington Heights we call Arlington's Fallen Heroes. While we're preparing for that, though, any individual in our group here that's going to be laying a wreath in our ceremony, I'd ask them to please assemble to the sidewalk next to our stage here to prepare for the wreath laying ceremony. Our 58 Arlington's Fallen Heroes begin with the Civil War. There were two, Jacob Sigwalt and Walter Kennicott. In the Spanish-American War, there was one, George R. Bray. In World War II, there were two, Theodore Heismuth and David H. Hodges. In World War II, the little farm town of Arlington Heights suffered 37 young men killed. They begin with Warren T. Umbright, John B. Hatch, John J. Nickel, Norman W. Basie, Douglas F. Milligan, Richard J. Adam, Paul E. Pingle, Theodore H. Meyer, John J. Deutsch, Franklin Bublitz, Lyle F. Shane, George F. Grossi, August B. Bunsick, Joseph J. Soyen, Paul W. Wood Jr., Eugene M. Potter, James H. Kellogg, Edward G. Deary, Howard P. Crerer, Chris W. Samuelovich, James C. Scott, Robert G. Gardner, Wilbert W. Behrens, Morris Bow, Elvin J. Anderson Jr., David Goodlett, Warren J. Henkin, Wilbert F. Giese, Lester S. Bennett Jr., Harry Fryermuth, Maurice E. Sheehan Jr., Albert G. Behrens, Adolph H. Henry Bussey Jr., Anthony Scalero, Richard F. Lucina, Raymond C. Peters, Arthur Niebuhr. In the Korean War, there were two, Frank E. Blumenschein and John Paul Martin Jr. From the Vietnam War, there were 9 from our town. Sammy Loyal Hartzell, U.S. Marine Corps. Robert Erie Bardock, U.S. Navy. Daniel Richard Shuren, U.S. Army. Harry Lee Craig, United States Marine Corps. Douglas Dean Vaughn, U.S. Navy. William Carl Dabbert, United States Army. Donald Allen Klarber, U.S. Army. Robert Few Conti, United States Marine Corps. And Scott Nelson Jacobson, U.S. Army. From Operation Desert Shield, there was one, Bradley Robert Schult, U.S. Air Force. From Operation Iraqi Freedom, there were 3, Paul Roland Syverson, United States Army. Andrew Carl Stern, United States Marine Corps, and William Robert Newgard, United States Army. And finally, from Operation Enduring Freedom, there was one, James Bray Stack, United States Marine Corps. These are the 58 young men from our town who sacrificed their lives in the cause of freedom. We will always remember them, and we will always honor their memory and thank their families. Thank you. Our final segment of our ceremony is the placing of wreaths in honor of our veterans present today and those who have fallen. The first wreath will be placed most fittingly by Lieutenant Colonel David S. Owen from the 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines, accompanied by Major Guillermo Rosales in honor of the 16 young Marines who were killed in action in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and indeed in honor of all those who have fallen in the service of our nation. Our next wreath will be placed by Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn, Commanding General, 85th Support Command, Arlington Heights, with Master Sergeant Gilbert Garrett and Sergeant Kerry Castillo, in honor of all those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our nation and for our freedoms. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington Heights Post 981 of the Veterans of Foreign War, by Chuck Shields, Commander, in honor of all who died for our country and all who have served in military uniform. Our next wreath is placed by the Northwest Suburban Detachment 80 of the Marine Corps League by Alfred Collegier, Commandant, in honor of all those who have served. Our next wreath is placed by the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 311, by Dick Klopp, in honor and remembrance of all 58,000 young men and women from America who died in the service of our nation from the Vietnam War. Our next wreath is from the American Legion, Merrill Guile, Post 208 here in Arlington Heights. The wreath is being placed by Lois Kurowski, Auxiliary President, and Cliff Dixon, Board Member, in honor of all those who have served our country. Our next wreath is placed by the Village of Arlington Heights for the people of Arlington Heights. Arlene Mulder, Mayor, will be placing the wreath accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Hayes, Trustee of Arlington Heights and member of the Veterans Memorial Committee. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington Heights Police Department, Detective Andrew Blevins, Crime Stopper Officer of the Year, in honor of all those who have served and all those who have fallen. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington Heights Fire Department by firefighters David Roberts and E.J. Mompe. This wreath of flowers is offered as a small token of gratitude from the Arlington Heights Fire Department for the ultimate gift given by fallen heroes throughout America. We honor the bravery of these men and women and the sacrifice for us. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington Heights Park District by Rob Nesvisill, Commissioner, in honor of all that has been done in Arlington Heights to honor and remember our veterans here at Memorial Park and every other place in our town. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington Heights Park Foundation by Mike Gordon, President, in honor of all that is good in the heart of Arlington Heights, in honoring and remembering our veterans. Our next wreath is placed by the Arlington High School alumni class of 1964, Jack Lindstrom representing his classmates. And the class of 1964 of Arlington High School honors our class president, Bob Conte, and our classmate and good friend, Bill Dabbert, and their families, as well as all those who have sacrificed so much for our freedom. Our next wreath is placed by the Lions of Arlington Heights, Greg Andrzejewski, President, in thankfulness of the freedoms that we enjoyed today because of the sacrifices of so many of our service personnel. Our next wreath is placed by the Kiwanis Club of Arlington Heights, and it will be placed by Pastor Tom Sanders, pastor of the Faith Lutheran Church. All Kiwanis members everywhere wish to honor the sacrifice of those who serve our nation, especially those that have given their last greatest measure of devotion. Our next wreath is placed by the Republicans of Wheeling Township, by Frank Schrader, DDS, veteran, U.S. Navy retired, veteran of World War II and the Korean War, with his son escorting him, Dr. Michael Schrader, in honor of all those who have served during those terrible conflicts and all those who have served since then. I'm making this stuff up. Our last wreath of our ceremony, is placed by the Wheeling Township Democrats, by Kurt Renz, U.S. Army veteran, Vietnam War in honor of all those who have served and sacrificed for our nation. Those are the wreaths that are placed in honor of our veterans by our many organizations. In our final element of our ceremony here, we will have a 21-gun salute to those that have fallen, followed by taps, followed by a closing prayer. Ready the rifle squad, ready the bugler. Chaplain Ed Lando of the 9th District of the American Legion will lead us in our closing prayer.
Uncover, please. Almighty God, we pray that you send us away in peace, harmony, and goodwill, to spread the spirit of patriotism, to support the weak, help the afflicted, and honor all people. Lord, watch over and protect all our troops stationed in foreign lands. May they return safely to their loved ones. Please hasten the return and or accountability of all our POWs, MIAs. Till then, they will not be forgotten. Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our Memorial Day 2012 ceremony. Corps, all our veterans in uniform, go to the Eternal Flame sculpture for a picture of all our service men and women in uniform. All right, all the veterans who are present here in the park, please gather around the Eternal Flame for the annual Remembering Our Veterans photo.